Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson made headlines recently for his shocking body transformation, dropping some considerable weight and turning up in the leanest form he's been in years at the screening of his most recent and most talked about film in a long time, The Smashing Machine, a biopic of the very challenging life of UFC legend Mark Kerr. In the early goings, the film has been very well received, with a 15-minute standing ovation at a European film festival. Praise for The Rock himself in his performance in early reviews, despite some critics maybe questioning some small things within the story. And the box office figures in its opening weekend, unfortunately, are some of the smallest for The Rock in one of his movies in a long time, if not his entire acting career. Even though the film has been divisive, it is a very good movie, and I will tell you how much I thought of it at the end of this video. This, though, is a life-changing role for the final boss moving forward in his career and his life. Want to know more? We got you covered. You're watching Sportskeeda Wrestling. We're going to the movies. I'm Kevin Kellum, and we're going to tell you why The Smashing Machine is going to change everything for The Rock. Possibly WWE as well. But before you go any further, you know what you're supposed to do. Come on! We want you to ground and pound, get on top of it and take us down, double-leg it, and then punch it in the face. And we're just talking about the like button, and then you subscribe, and then you turn that little bell thing on to let your notifications know that you're getting new videos from us. Come on, watch the videos. You're watching this one. We got more videos. Put them in your queue. Yes, help us defeat our greatest enemy, the algorithm. So let's get into it. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has made quite the career out of the old acting gig in the last 2 decades. He starred in the Fast and the Furious, Jumanji, Black Adam, The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King, San Andreas, Moana, for Disney, G.I. Joe, The Tooth Fairy. Yeah, there's been a lot of big earners on the list without counting some smaller action movie projects like Faster, Hercules, The Rundown, Walking Tall, a 3-season sitcom about his early youthful days in the wrestling business, and live-action comedy fare like The Game Plan, Race to Witch Mountain, and Jungle Cruise. It's not inaccurate to say that the man WWE fans know simply as The Rock, whether you like his films or not, is one of the biggest box office draws in Hollywood of all time, replicating the same drawing power that he had when he was headlining WWE's main event scene with the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin in the late 90s and early 2000s. It all began with The Mummy Returns and then The Scorpion King back in the early 2000s, which allowed Rocky to catch the attention of the film world. It was clear from the start that Hollywood knew he was the next big action star, and they certainly capitalized on that. Despite the disgusting CGI rendering of him in The Mummy Returns, which saw him looking like a boss from a PlayStation 1 game, not only that, The Rock's time in professional wrestling, notably his promos and over-the-top charisma, proved that he could be funny as well, which opened the doors for comedy roles that were a lot more family-friendly, and the humor was certainly not something we saw him doing in WWE during the Attitude Era, if you smell what we're cooking. Yeah, no references to pie or strudel back then. If you know, you know. This did land The Rock a lot of roles, but also left him in a typecasting gray area. Certainly he made the most out of being a tough guy action star and the muscle-bound funny man, though it's arguable that John Cena does the latter far more effectively depending on who you talk to. Despite the limits of roles that were offered to him, Rocky made good use of the opportunities that came his way, and became the greatest, biggest man in his field for doing so, both in terms of box office and in terms of just literal mass appeal. Looking as muscular as any action hero to grace the big screen in over years, the likes of Schwarzenegger and the Stallones, to a lesser extent the Van Dams, and we're not even going to bring up Steven Seagal, because why would we? Whether or not it's healthy to walk around looking so jacked like that all the time, we don't know, but Dwayne Johnson maximized the branding and the financial potential of the look, arguably more than anyone before him. And for a while, it seemed like an unstoppable formula. Even though his works weren't always the critics' choice, he was an irrefutable movie star. They still made hundreds of millions of dollars and pushed Rock's career even further up the ladder. There was a time where studios would bring The Rock into a failing state of a franchise and add a new character and build 4 or 5 movies around him, just based off the boost associated with the electricity of the man known as The Rock. His films combined reportedly for a gross of over $15 billion worldwide. That's only a few billion away from TKO's entire net worth. That's how big he was at his peak. This was always great news for WWE, who had essentially made him during the WWE Attitude Era. He was still The Rock from WWE, who people loved and remembered in the 90s and early 2000s, even when he couldn't use the name The Rock. His success outside of the ring went on to make him the biggest star in the ring. He is one of the, if not the, biggest wrestler to transcend the pro wrestling business, and whenever he returned, it was always a big deal, and it always led to a boost in TV ratings and pay-per-view sales for WWE, notably during the twice-in-a-lifetime duology of matches with John Cena at WrestleMania 28 and WrestleMania 29, which were both record-breaking and infamous for the WWE. The Rock was always pretty untouchable in wrestling and in Hollywood, and it stays this way for a long time. Until 2022, with the release of a film called Black Adam. The DC Extended Cinematic Universe was a divisive series of cinema and comic book fans coming together with angry opinions on the internet, and it garnered criticism and considerable dips in quality over the years, depending on who you talk to. So it was decided that Rocky would be brought to save another franchise by playing the legendary DC Comics anti-hero Black Adam. The movie was panned across the board by critics and fans, and it made nowhere near as much as Warner Brothers had hoped that it would. And it had a boatload of controversy surrounding certain things behind the scenes, and fans wanting to see the reasoning why there was an instant dismissal of Henry Cavill as Superman, and maybe Rock just garnered heat for just being associated with it. However, we're not a movie channel, we're a wrestling channel, so we're gonna get into that here. But after the failure of Black Adam, if you want to label it that, but after some certified stinkers on the Rotten Tomato meter like Red 1 and Red Notice, people were starting to tire of the same old Rock on the big screen. Then suddenly, The Rock was back on WWE screens, on the board of directors of WWE, returning to the industry that created him into the star he would grow on to become when Hollywood maybe was souring on him, despite him still being a big power broker there, giving fans a familiar face and a final boss for their stories of wrestling. That meant something. While it drew attention for sure, everything The Rock draws attention to, he soon started to catch the ire of WWE fans. Now, there was a number of reasons. Mainly, The Rock was back after nearly a decade-long absence from the ring, only to insert himself straight into the main event picture. Now he can't go anywhere because he's The Rock. But the fans had their hearts set on Cody Rhodes finishing his story at that point, so The Rock versus Roman Reigns being plugged into the Road to WrestleMania 40 as the potential main event was aggravating. Right match, wrong time. We still need that Rock versus Roman Reigns match, by the way. Let us know when you want to see that match and how you want to see that match in the comments below. WWE fans made no secret of how cringy they found his custom People's Championship belt, even though it was gifted to him by Muhammad Ali's family members at the Hall of Fame for WWE. And after having a main event tag team match the first night of WrestleMania 40 and showing up for Raw's Netflix debut after Cody Rhodes humbled The Rock and Roman Reigns and the entire bloodline by finishing his story, yeah, he was being involved in John Cena's heel turn. The Rock took some time off from WWE and still hasn't returned at this time of writing. So now we're angry that The Rock didn't come back, and then we were angry at him when he did come back. I know, it's really weird. And when The Rock didn't show up at WrestleMania, we got rapper Travis Scott on his behalf. Oh boy, that didn't go well. Rock stated earlier in 2025 that he was experiencing some health issues, but also there is speculation that his absence was due to filming a certain movie. The topic of today's video is in fact his commitments in film, The Smashing Machine. As we mentioned, it's a role of a fighter, something that The Rock played in pro wrestling. But the comparisons kind of stop there, because this is a film that realistically can change things for both The Rock's movie career and maybe even his future within the WWE. He showed off dramatic weight loss at a screening after the film. In the film, he's as big as he's ever been. but The Rock looks to be as big as ever while portraying Mark Kerr in the movie itself. There is a deeply emotional performance in this film, something you've never seen from the million-dollar wink, smile, and let's kick some ass movie star Rock. A career first for him, where he ventures into a world of gritty, dramatic biopics, courtesy of art house studio A24, the same production company that brought wrestling fans The Iron Claw, the very dramatic portrayal of the Von Erich family. They make very serious films, which are significant for The Rock, whose filmography really lacks a very serious piece of work. Like we said, he was very reliable, very bankable as an action movie star. Even though there's fighting in this movie, it's less of a fighting sports movie and much more of a dramatic film. But a project like The Smashing Machine offers a bridge, a gap between action and drama. And this has allowed The Rock to show off his thespian skills as well as his impressive physique. But the drama element really seems to have struck a chord with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself. Despite critics of the film mainly directed at its story, which is still a very shallow critique, The Rock has been wildly praised for his outing as the UFC legend, even though it hasn't ranked as much money as other movies and flashier films that he's done in his career. Reportedly, he slimmed down for a further role after this film, hoping to transform what he had from The Smashing Machine into other films, or so he claimed in an interview with People magazine earlier this year. A lot of makeup and effects went into giving The Rock a very different look in his face to resemble Mark Kerr's real-life look, and they covered up his tattoos and gave him a full head of hair. There was real danger in this being unintended physical comedy full of goofy wigs and lines of dialogue that weren't supposed to be funny but were anyway. Some rumors regarding early cuts even alluded to this, but in the early days of its release, the film seemed to have gone down very well with critics. Reasonably well, that it isn't exactly setting the world on fire, but that's not the point. That being said, the film's domestic box office opening only brought in right around a few $1 million off the back of the $50 million budget. That can be considered bad, and maybe another factor is there is an audience that is conditioned to seeing The Rock in big popcorn action movie films. The story, though, the real-life story of Mark Kerr, which is based off a documentary called The Smashing Machine, portrays the struggles of a MMA fighter at the early levels of the sport, well before it had mainstream success with the UFC. Documenting Kerr, who fought in promotions like Pride FC, even won the UFC heavyweight tournament twice in the old school days before it was under the TKO banner. It also touches on the struggles that Kerr faced outside of the fighting ring, addiction and prescription medications being abused, and the abuse he put on himself. Other MMA legends are also depicted in the film, including Mark Coleman, who's played by Ryan Bader, a real-life fighter, and Bas Rutten, who plays Bas Rutten. You know, the guy who trained Kevin James in Here Comes the Boom? Yeah, you didn't know we were going to bring up Kevin James. Overall, The Smashing Machine is a true switching point for The Rock. He is at a point in his life, and maybe even his career, that moving into dramatic roles might be the way to go. Do we think he's going to win an Oscar for The Smashing Machine? People are asking this question. I'm going to tell you, I think he deserves to be nominated after seeing the film. He is the most vulnerable he has ever been emotionally in a movie. When I can see The Rock on a screen and forget that it's The Rock, then I know he's doing a great job. But do I think he's going to win an Oscar? Fortunately, no. And there's a chance that maybe even reviews turn and audience receptions dip, and maybe they don't get to stream this movie before the whole, award season really picks up, and The Rock's not really considered that type of actor, blah, blah, blah. But The Rock clearly developing a taste for serious acting roles because of this movie, it might have huge implications on the WWE. And here's why. If he goes that route, does it seem like The Rock will plan to get back in the ring anytime soon? He's at a specific period in his life, and given that he's transforming his body so much for acting roles, and maybe even has some health concerns about those transformations, this could put an end to any rumors of the final boss versus insert WWE main event talent here. Meaning that WWE needs to find a new ultimate big baddie for any prospective existing top-level babyface to overcome in the end. Rock being both a top in-ring heel and one of the authority figures legitimately behind the scenes in WWE was always an interesting concept, one that didn't really play out completely beyond the tag team match in WrestleMania 40, where he was really in a supporting role instead of a lead role. Ultimately, not one that could last, as The Rocky had too many things going on being The Rock, and the fans had their hearts set on other stories for him. He didn't show up enough after WrestleMania 40 to get any kind of story going in regards to this final boss character. Plus, he switched babyface for one night on Raw's Netflix debut, which didn't do him any favors. While we all enjoyed his aura and his angry, swearing ways, even his commitment to a heel role against Cody, whipping him. Oh, that was a great scene there in Chicago. He did somewhat distract from Roman Reigns, who was the true heel of Cody's story. And while the great one, The Rock, has not officially retired from in-ring competition, his venture into the world of legitimate thespianism could have those big implications on one OTC Roman Reigns, who could reclaim the undisputed position of the head of the table in The Rock's absence without having to fight for it. That Bloodline Rules match, as we mentioned, we want it. Rock versus Reigns. Can we still get that, please? Yeah, it'd be a shame because that match between those two still could be very huge. Whatever happens, the Smashing Machine could be a pivotal moment in Rock's career. Even if the film is not a huge hit, it's a good movie. If he gets more roles because of this for serious method acting, things that he can move on with, and reportedly he's already doing that, he could be chasing award buzz for the next few years. Away from just being the guy who kicks ass in movies, which we already know he can do and he's done. But we also want to see him kick ass in the pro wrestling ring, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's doubtful we'll see The Rock bulk back up for wrestling presentations again, but that doesn't mean he can't get in the ring one more time. But at 53 years old, time to do so is running thin. Rock's caliber for what he wants to do for a good retirement match could be the next thing we consider to be cooked up. He could still show up as the occasional authority figure for a cheap and massive pop in a viral moment after he retires. It's just hard to imagine The Rock never laying the smacketh down ever again. Something tells me we'll be waiting a while for that retirement match, if the Great One plans on doing it. What do you think? The certified fresh side of the tomato meter is calling his name, and it seems to be there with the Smashing Machine, just barely. But he can smell the ripeness, and he's chasing it now, and that much we know for sure. We're sure the box office will catch up eventually. This is The Rock after all. That's right, he's gonna fire up and shake those ropes and come out with another movie. And at the end of this one, will the Smashing Machine change everything for The Rock? You let us know. Is he going to be more of a serious actor? You let us know. Is this gonna keep him from coming back to WWE? Do you think he'll ever win an Oscar? You let us know in the comments below. Raise our collective eyebrows with a like and subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling for more content just like this.